Yay! That's great. Is everybody in from the other room?
Yeah, that's why I'm waiting for like a few more women that were meeting me.
Look at us.
I know.
All right, if you're sitting alone at a table, we don't want you to be alone. We're here for community. We're here for women well-being. We need each other, sister. We need each other. So wherever there's other women that also need sisterhood.
More? There might be a few more left.
There's a few more coming.
Yeah.
Ready? Sit with colleagues, new friends. We're bonding, we're creating sisterhood, so. 4 minutes? Oh, we've got 6 sisters coming. Okay, well, we can do it. We got.
Just go ahead and start talking.
Yeah, we're going to get started, and then they'll join us when they're ready. How's that? How exciting. Everybody, yeah, go right ahead. I should have introduced myself. I'm Vanessa, and I just like shoved you into another table. Nice to meet you. I'm bossy. Did you tell? Yeah, I'm bossy. It's so nice to see everyone. For me, this is really amazing because it feels like a reunion. I know we're running a little late, but since there's people that are still finishing, I'm going to tell the story. So it was last November, early November, and I was going for my first ever public speaking engagement in Washington, D.C., which was a huge, huge moment for me because it was advocating, and it was at this patient advocacy conference, and I had never even gone to Washington, D.C., because I should say I'm Canadian, and I'd just never been. I'd never had an opportunity. It was a huge moment, and I was in tears, in shambles. It was 6 in the morning, and I was heading to the airport, and I was so freaked out, and I don't know why. Like, I public speak all the time, but this was like, you know when you finally like have your dream in front of you, but then you're like, I don't know that I want to do it. Like it's too much. I'm not ready for it. And so it was 6 in the morning. True story. I called Dana. I don't know why. Something happened. My fairy godmother, and I called Dana, and I was like, Dana, I'm feeling horrible about myself. I have to go speak, and I want to go inspire a whole room full of people. And I've always wanted to do this, and I'm talking about patient advocacy, which is something so huge for me. And she's like, calm down. Let's just breathe. This moment is meant for you. You are ready. And then we ended up talking my whole airport ride. So it was fantastic because I didn't remember that I was nervous until I got into the plane. But then I thought about you and I prayed and I did my breathing. But it was during that call that I don't know how we got to the topic, but I was like, hey, Dana, I'm like part of this organization, Women We Admire, and we're talking about putting together an event. And she said, what? I'm working on putting together an event. I want it to be about women's well-being. And I said, well, let's do it. And here we are. It's so exciting.
Yes.
And so the idea was to create a really intimate setting where some really incredible people could bond, could create community, sisterhood, and learn from one another. So I'm here to welcome you. I'll start from the beginning because I think we have everyone in place now. I'm Vanessa Peace. I'm Vice President of Marketing Strategy at the American Cancer Society. I fumble on that because it's just weird for me to have this title when I'm really so much more than that. And I had to take a long journey to figure that out for myself. But it turns out that I'm a badass woman. I'm ambitious. I'm a mom, right? I'm a wife. I'm also a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a community member. I volunteer. There's so many hats that we're all wearing as women. And I was just talking to my old boss, my dear friend Jen over here, about just how amazing women are because we take on so much, and yet we seem to ask for so little. And specifically in the workplace, you know who you are. The women who are just trying to not make waves, and we're just working really, really hard. And we're just trying to make sure that we're continuing to show productivity. And at the same time, we make sure everyone around us is happy. And everyone around us as well. And then we go home with all that stress, and we still make sure everyone is happy. And we're still there for our friends, and we're still there for our family, our aging family members. Can you guys relate to that? Yeah. So we decided to put together our first ever Accelerating Women's Wellbeing. This is intended to be an intimate moment. We're going to have a panel discussion. We're going to talk about 5 key features of well-being as is determined by Gallup, the research folks, who recently put out this research, and it's a huge article. You can read it if you want, but really the sum of it is 7 out of 10 people are miserable. 7 out of 10 people are not thriving. And so we wanted to start talking about what it takes to thrive. And also, according to Gallup, there are 5 different areas of well-being. And so you'll notice that there's a panel. I'm going to jump into the panel, and then we have a wonderful moderator, and that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about those 5 areas of well-being. One being purpose and career as working women. One being social and relationships, so important. One being financial, that's why we work, right? One being physical. I work for the American Cancer Society. Go get screened, please. I have my mammogram in 3 weeks, and I've heard a couple of other women told me that they're getting their mammograms done. Screening matters. And then the 5th one is community, and this is why we're together, building community and being able to be fulfilled in our community. Before I jump on the panel, I want to thank AT&T, our amazing hosts today.
Yay.
They got us in the best room in the house. I mean, we got a view from the top because we are all going to the top, right? Yes. And I also have to thank the Women We Admire organization and 𝗪𝗶𝗍𝗃𝗍. Where is she? Mercedes?
Oh, there she is.
She drove from Houston to be here. Yes. Thank you, Mercedes. Thank you so much. So Women We Admire, as well as Dana Williams Consulting. They've worked tirelessly to put this event together. It just happened so serendipitously. And then we have this wonderful group of women panelists, and we're all going to introduce ourselves. But I'm so grateful that you're all here. Thank you. Enjoy. And did I forget anything? I think we're ready. Let's get going.
Yeah. Thank you, Vanessa. You can see her energy. Each of you at your table, in your bag, or at your table should have a book. If you don't, raise your hand, and Mercedes will make sure you get this. It's called The Strengths Journal. And on page 24, you'll see the 5 areas of well-being. And the reason we want you to know about this, and we're going to talk about it from these amazing group of women today, is that you can manage your well-being. It's really not up to your doctor or your family. And as Vanessa said, you're all busy, busy women. And we want to make sure that today you walk away. Our intent is you walk away with something, an action item that you can take. And we have table hosts, Erin, Blair, Ann, Alyssa, and Elaine. Where'd she go? One other one, she was just right here. Right over there. Okay, so they're here to help you. We're going to have maybe about 15 minutes instead of 30 minutes at the end because we're running a bit behind. But they're going to be leading a discussion at your tables about well-being, and one thing you learned today that you're going to take away in an action item. So when we created this, we know that 7 out of 10 people right now are suffering in their well-being. And I just read today from Gallup, the latest research says, what is the #1 thing that people look for in their career? It's not money, it's not community, they want well-being. That is the new thing. So we want to make sure you guys leave here with something that you can apply directly to your lives. And I am so honored with this panel, starting with Vanessa. Vanessa, as she said, we met years ago at Southwest, and I've had the pleasure of mentoring her and being with her through her journey. Even when her daughter was born with special needs, and how she managed that and how she's managed her life since is amazing. She inspires me every day. I've watched Vanessa build her career at different organizations, but her brand is still the same. And I talk a lot about that you own your brand. And you're going to learn a little bit about strengths today. We have some coaches in the room that have coached with strengths, but Vanessa has positivity and it shines. And you'll see it. So thank you, Vanessa. And she already introduced that she's Vice President of Marketing. The next person I want to introduce is Rachel. I had the pleasure of interviewing Rachel last year in my podcast, and Rachel has written a book. It's Relationships at Work, How to Authentically Network Within Your Company. So one of the things we talked about in the podcast, and as I've talked to her, is Rachel's an introvert, but yet she teaches you how to network. And she has done this here at AT&T. And I think, Rachel, one of the things I learned from you is that every job you moved up to, you didn't go and apply for it. It just came to you from your networking.
That's exactly right.
Is that not amazing?
Yep.
I mean, amazing. The next amazing woman we have is Dr. 𝗙𝗲𝗁𝗍𝗃𝗍. I have to tell you a little behind the scenes. I'm going to pull the curtain back. So Gloria rode here with Mercedes, and as you can tell, Mercedes is due in about 2 weeks. And she said, don't worry, I've got Gloria with me. She can deliver the baby in the car if we go to deliver. I'm like, that's my girl. Gloria inspires me. She's going to be talking about physical well-being, what we put in our body, what we do with our body. Gloria is a doctor. She's a trained OBGYN. But she got the calling to change, and she fell in love with research, and she's seeing gaps in research for women's health. She's down in Houston. She's doing some amazing work down there, but guess what? She's become a coach because she sees an area that is not being covered, and she's filling that gap. Yeah. So welcome, Gloria. Michelle, oh my gosh. Michelle is here in Dallas. She leads the community relations for Bank of Texas. When Michelle and I had a great conversation, Michelle was really an actress. And then she got the calling for community leadership and has just fallen in love with banking. So she's going to talk to us about financial management, one of my subjects I don't like. She makes it fun. And thank you, Michelle. She's also, all of these women have so many things they're doing and on so many boards, and I wish we had all day because these are amazing women. And then I love what Mariana, when I met Mariana, she goes, well, I might be in Italy because I'm getting my citizenship there. And then when we talked, she goes, well, we're going to move to Spain. I'm like, I want your life.
It's almost the same distance.
Which is so neat about Mariana is she's an attorney, and she has been deep in the DE&I work. And I love her attitude with the recent change of culture right now. She's not she's pivoting with purpose. I want you all to hear from her and how she's managing this and how she leads corporations all over the world with inclusion. And we have a name for that, right? Uniqueness, is that right?
Yeah.
So each of these ladies are going to answer questions. Y'all feel free to take notes. Our intent is that you take something away from each of them that you can apply to your life. One thing I do want to say to you is that you're an original. When we compare ourselves to others, we really betray ourselves. I want you to let that sink in. Because everybody, right? Comparison's the thief of joy. I don't want you to compare yourself to these amazing women. I want you to learn from them because they're trailblazers and they're making a difference. Today, this whole interview is going to be repurposed on my podcast, Dominate Your Day. It's also going to be used by women we admire. So you might see Daniel around here taking pictures and videographers. Just know that we are excited about taking this content and repurposing it to get it out to a bigger audience. But the most important thing today is going to happen at your table that last 15 minutes. So please take notes and feel free to ask questions. Okay, we're going to kick off with career well-being. Career well-being is, I have purpose. So my daughter's here, Whitney. She's an entrepreneur. She reverse engineer as a mentor to me. My mother is 88, and she mentors me. My mom has purpose. She's a screenwriter. She just finished college at 86. My purpose is that we all, when they've done studies of longevity, the people that live the longest have purpose. It doesn't mean you have a job or a title. We've recently gone through all the layoffs of our friends at Southwest and other companies around the world, and it's hard, but you can pivot with purpose. And we're going to talk about how you've done that today, Vanessa. So tell us how you create an environment that supports well-being at work.
So I think that, first of all, it starts with me being well with myself. So I always have to remember that. I think that the old adage of put your oxygen mask on first has been told a million times. There's a reason why it's repeated all the time. It's because traditionally women don't. They'll put the mask on somebody that they're looking after before they put it on themselves. And I've actually felt burnout, and I've felt anxiety, and I've felt I remember 3 or maybe 4 years ago having my first ever anxiety attack. And if you've had anxiety, I didn't know what it was. I thought I was dying of a heart attack. And it was because I was taking care of my family, but really I was so focused on my career, and there was a lot of transition and a lot of movement, like there always will be, right? In every job, in every career, every place I've ever worked, there's a lot of transition, and I was so highly focused on that, and I forgot to take care of myself, and I forgot to put the oxygen mask. And that was a big moment for me. I realized that I had probably for about 25 years neglected myself and just spent so much time taking care of business, taking care of marriage, taking care of aging parents, taking care of children, volunteering, taking care of all the things, all with a smile, always happy, always driven with purpose, but I wasn't taking care of myself. And as I got older, I started to realize the importance of that. And so for me, well-being in my career is first starting with a walk. I know it sounds crazy. I wake up every morning and I journal. And even this morning when I was running late, because my child, there was the storm, the bus, the whole thing everything was running late, I still journaled. If you can't journal even just 3 things you're grateful for, I mean, you can use your phone and journal while you're at the loo, right? But every day I start with gratitude. And that's what I do. Every day I start with gratitude. It's not always about my career. Sometimes it's just because I'm grateful for a bed, right? Because sometimes I'm mad at everything, but I'm grateful for the bed and for the slippers and, you know, for my home. And other days I'm just grateful for all these incredible opportunities of meeting wonderful women like I'm here today. And then I go for my walk. And they're 2 simple habits, but it reminded me that to be strong in my career and to be a strong leader for people who are walking alongside me or who I lead, I have to be strong for myself, and I have to also walk the walk, talk the talk. I got to tell people that I'm walking. So now I actually take my first meeting while I walk, and I tell people I'm walking. Sorry, I'm off camera. I'm walking. And we used to do that at AT&T. An old colleague there. We used to walk the stairs. Right? So it is just about having a routine for myself so that I stay grounded in who I am before I start the day. And it's harder than it looks. Like there are mornings where I'm rushing and it's just like get the hair fixed and get in front of the camera quickly, and it's like, wait, I didn't do my 3 gratitudes. It takes 3 seconds. I didn't take my walk. Get on the treadmill, go walk. So that's how I do that, but I make sure that I tell people that I'm doing that so that they feel like they're allowed to do it as well.
I love that. What I hear here is patterns. What are the patterns I'm creating in my life each day so that I can just repeat them? So I love that. Rachel, how about you? How do you bring career well-being, or for your area, I want to talk about social well-being. How do you bring that into work, into the people that you get to connect with every day?
Yeah, so I am the most unlikely expert on this topic.
Which is
Dana already mentioned that I am a massive introvert. And people are always surprised to hear that because they mistake being friendly and cheerful, and I'm both, but they mistake that with being an extrovert. And that's not it at all. It's where you draw your energy from. So the extroverts walk into something like this, and it just fills you up with energy, right? To meet people and to shake hands and to give hugs. And the introverts, it's exhausting, right? I mean, we do it because it's part of our job, and we know it's good for us. It's like eating our veggies. We know it's good for us, but it's exhausting. And so about 10 years ago, one of my mentoring circles asked me if I'd put together something on how to network. I was like, no, I don't even know what I would say. And somebody said, Rachel, you're really good at relationships. Started to flip the script for me because we hear the word networking and we get cold and clammy. We hear the word relationships. We're like, I do that. And so I love to teach people what I have learned. Thank you for already plugging my book, Dana. 100% of the profits go to United Way of Metropolitan Dallas. So the book is Relationships at Work, How to Authentically Network Within Your Company. And in the collateral we gave you today, I have a list of just my 20 tips on how to network. But if you want more, buy the book. All the profits go to United Way. But relationships fuel me. They fuel me. And I'm talk to somebody who is a psychologist. Who's the psychologist right over here? Yes. Tell me your name again. Stephanie. And gosh, we have a mental health crisis right now in our country. Well, probably all over the world, right? And you know what the antidote to that is? Relationships. It's having someone that you care about, someone that cares about you. It's how we find joy and fulfillment in our work. And so I know that you challenged everyone, Dana, to come away with 2 takeaways, of something for today. I'm going to be so bold as to give you your homework assignment. I'm going to give you the answer. Find 2 people that you connect with today and reach out to them. I already found my 2. I'm going to connect with Ann and with Bonnie, right? We already found each other on LinkedIn, and I'm going to reach out and we'll have a virtual coffee. Find 2 people. It's hard for the introverts, but we can do it, right? We can do hard things. But find 2 people and say, hey, let's get a virtual cup of coffee. Let's get real coffee. But the relationships are how you fuel yourself and how you bring joy to your personal life and the workplace.
I love that. And her books, we have 3 of them to give away today, so we're going to do that at the end. So thank you for that. But also, here's what Gallup says. We all need 6 hours of social a day. So if you find yourself sitting in your office and not even texting or doing FaceTime or Zoom or any of those things, this is when we see our family, our friends isolating, and it's our role as their friend or their leader or our people, if they're in a hybrid group, to connect with them. So the relationship piece is powerful. And you think back down to caveman days, there were pictures of groups together in the little drawings. This wasn't that we were all supposed to be alone. Even that moment that Vanessa said she reached out to me, that was a good well-being tip. She was having a moment. Who am I going to call? And that is that relationship piece, Rachel.
That's right. And there's, almost a good, better, best with this too. Texting someone to say, how are you? That's good, right? I don't want anyone to think I'm annoyed if I get a text to say, how are you? But what are you going to get back? All's good, smiley emoji, right? But it's when you have a conversation, right? That's when you talk about what's really going on. And yes, I would say in text, kids are great. But then we talk, oh my gosh, I'm so worried about my daughter graduating and I'm worried about my son, right? You need to have these dialogues.
Yeah, and it's those real friends and that health. So this brings us to Gloria, Dr. 𝗙𝗲𝗁. How do you coach your people that come to you for coaching or patients that come to you for how do they manage their well-being? Because some of the research you were telling me about, there's some recent information you were sharing with me about women's health recently and how they're seeing a trend, right?
Yeah.
Can you share that with the audience?
I'm impressed that you all touched exactly on something. When I was invited here, I told Anna, I hope you're not expecting me to say one diet, one exercise, this amount of fasting that will bring you to wellness and happiness. Because when you described me or presented me, there has been a transition in my career. And it's not just because. It happened because I started seeing that there was some connection about what you say, Vanessa. I'm a mother, I'm a woman, I'm a daughter, I take care of my parents, I work, I do this and that, and I don't put my oxygen mask first. I love it, I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna use that because this is how we are, all of us. I'm from Argentina, that's why the accent, but believe me, around the world, women, we're all like that. And so the most important, this transition in my career, and that brought me to coaching women with chronic illnesses, and then I had to say women, because sometimes there's not a disease diagnosed, but there are some symptoms or things, and I would say, let's have that space for us. You mentioned that. Let's reconnect to ourselves, to that feminine part of us that is so intuitive. Let's reconnect with our gut feelings. Let's reconnect with our wholeness. We are whole, we are complete. We don't need anything else. And it's not about one diet, and it's not about, I don't know, one specific thing that will bring us there. Just take a moment to sit with me. How am I feeling? Mm-hmm. Am I feeling something in my body? Let's pay attention there. If there's tension, pay attention. Just sit with it. What's going on? Sometimes when patients or clients in the coaching, there's a chronic illness, there's any cancer, obesity, or I don't know, an autoimmune disease, whatever is it, or a symptom, this chronic back pain or whatever is it. When did it start? What was going on? couple of years before. Can we sit with that? And sometimes we don't even know, as psychologists, we don't connect that. It's so hidden somewhere. And it might be childhood trauma, and it might be a million other things that we need to address. So where to start? Just reconnect with me. Reconnect with me and have compassion for myself. Have compassion for every single part of me. There's going to be the part that wants to go run and exercise and have a healthy diet. And there's going to be a part of me that is so judging of myself. And it's always making me feel less, inferior, I'm not good enough, you know, all those limiting beliefs that we all have. But just give the space to think of all of this. How am I feeling? And reconnect with that, with your inner, true, beautiful you. And have compassion and love all your parts. I know it sounds like, but we can do it. We're women. We can do it.
I love that, Gloria. I think one thing she mentions that we don't stop and think about, how am I feeling right now? What is the feeling I have? And I think so many times we don't even know how to feel because we haven't found that in so long. And one of the things that Gloria shared with me is this rise in autoimmune disease right now. Yeah. And Gloria, what is that from? Yes. Can anybody guess?
You said it. Vanessa said it. There's no healthy, we don't allow healthy anger because women, we should be nice, making everybody else happy around us. Where do you think that goes? I'm not saying rage. I'm saying happy, healthy anger. I don't like it. I need to speak up for myself. But it's not our fault. This is how society is. And yes, we see that autoimmune diseases affect 80% women. That's a lot. It was not like that 100 years ago. It was more of a 1:1 ratio. It's 4:1 now, women to men.
So this is something that we're in control of our health. And when I talk a lot about the hula hoop. We can put the hula hoop around us and control here. We can't control the world and all the things out. So what are the things we're going to do today with these 5 areas of well-being? And physical is, what am I putting in my body? What am I doing with my body? How am I moving my body? But what is my emotional? Also, this whole stress piece that you're talking about. And I love how you're so passionate about really getting in there and figuring out this gap that is not being covered for women's health, because it's affecting people. And I know several people in the audience, I've heard from you, and it changed their careers because of health. And this is a brave thing to do, because I have a friend right now that is not doing well with cancer, stage 4. And it was from things that happened to her 5 years ago. And I know that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we've got it up. So thank you, Gloria. Okay, Michelle, talk to us about financial well-being. And how do finances relate to well-being and living one's purpose?
Yeah, okay, I love this question because I really do believe that financial peace is self-care. And, we like to define it as, getting our nails done or getting massages or whatever. And not to infantilize you and tell you that that is not a good thing that you should be doing, right? But really pulling back and thinking about your finances as a reflection of your values. So when we talk about well-being, I really think that starts with authenticity to yourself and to your values. And you alone are accountable to your bank account, right? So I love to go on walks too, but I probably am not gonna say, today I spent $20 on lunch. It's something that we don't really broadcast, right? Because finances are really, really personal. But at the end of the month, when you're looking at your bank account and whatever that looks like, you can track what you have valued that month, you can track your mental health by your expenditures, and a variety of other wellness things. So I really think that the financial wellness piece is almost like the hub of a wheel, and I'm not trying to sound self-important because these are all super important, but your financial well-being is going to affect every other part of your well-being. You know, your sleep, your ability to do whatever you want to do, right? So I said, you know, it's a reflection of your values. So I think when I say that, everybody goes, oh, my finances should be a reflection of my values. What are my values? You know, and you think about, oh, my family and my community and, you know, XYZ, whatever that is for you. But it's not that your finances should be a reflection of your values. Your finances are a reflection of your values. And again, with you and you alone being the only person accountable to your bank and your bank account, that's an internal dialogue, right? That's oh my goodness, I just spent a lot of money on Instagram crap. True story. How, you know, and you look back through the month, and like I said, you know, you can track your mental health by your expenses, right? Okay, what does that mean for me? You know, I was up late at night on Amazon and on Instagram and all of this stuff. Why am I doing that? And money is leaking out of my bank account, right? But when I am in a place of mental health, I find I have more money because I'm not spending on stupid stuff. I'm able to be more generous, I'm saving more, and I'm really pursuing and achieving my goals financially and with everything else. And so whenever you have that moment, and we all do, of, oh my gosh, I spent this much money on Amazon, it's an opportunity to check in with your well-being, with your values, with your mental health. And what do I need to do, right? What do I need to do so that I don't feel the need to get a dopamine hit? What does that overall well-being look like? And that all goes back to authenticity, purpose, and values.
I love that. And if you guys don't know your values, you can go on the internet and there's a list of core values. I also have some that I send out, so you can reach out to me. But it helps you just to kind of identify your core values and know what those are, because those are the deciding factors for you in so many things. In financial well-being, it's I have enough of what I need, and that is the description for that. But I love how you went deeper into the emotional and the psychological aspect of it. Mariana, wow. Okay, let's talk about community well-being. And this is what you do in corporations worldwide with your experience with DE&I, your experience as an attorney, and then your experience in helping people adjust in this time. What is your recommendation to these ladies here?
You know, community well-being, and I'm just going to steal from all, all of them because, and Rachel, you know, your point about relationships. Human connection, community well-being, how do we fit into these? And I want to tap into what you said at the beginning, uniqueness. The first thing I'm going to say is, you know, I think that this crowd knows very much about community well-being because particularly AT&T has had a women's ERG since 1972, before anyone else had a women's ERG. And you have some spin-off too, right, of that, the Women's in Tech and others. So you know how to do community well. The value of community and well-being is huge because of that sense of belonging that we all need. Being supported, supporting others, building those relationships that Rachel is talking about, and being purposeful about that. And one important thing, going to the uniqueness that we were talking at the beginning, that you mentioned, Donna, is by being part of a community, you don't have to lose yourself. You have to always lead with that authenticity. Because that uniqueness, that unique value proposition that you bring to the table is yours and yours alone. And that is what's going to really create more value for the community. So when we work within organizations, particularly this aspect of community in well-being is also impacting your career development. think about sponsorships and mentorships and how knowing people, and again, Rachel, I will be going back to you, but you're an example of doing that well. You know, jobs come to you as opposed to you having to go to the job. Because those relationships over time build your social capital. And there's a lot of research by Rob Patterson in Harvard about the need of psychological safety in communities, which is absolutely essential. And we talk a lot about when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but forget about diversity, equity, and inclusion for a second, if you will. We need it in order to build communities that thrive. And communities that thrive are going to help individuals thrive, and vice versa. So there is huge value because being part of a community in a healthy way, by leading with your authenticity and by being accepted in that community for your authenticity, is going to help you on your physical health as well. Your mental health is going to check in. Your stress, your anxiety, the importance of not being isolated. And I'm going to tap into what we said before in terms of, connecting and what really human connection means. Because I think that it was great that in the pandemic, all these technologies came to save us, right? And we look at younger generations and we feel how well connected they are because they are so much more savvy than me, at least, in using this technology to stay connected with each other. But I want you to think for a second the difference between communicating and connecting. Because we can have all the technology in the world, we can check in for a second, and that's why I love it's not just that, hey, how are you doing today, but it's the more of the engaging into the conversation. I think it takes, 18 seconds, I heard, to really make a human connection. And if we can do this exercise later, I will ask, did you hear about the 6-second hug?
Do you want to do it now?
We can do it now. I mean, you can go and shake hands or just hug someone for a second, but if you actually spend 6 seconds hugging someone, you're building connection. It's super powerful. I remember telling my husband a few weeks ago, I was going through something. I'm like, no. I said, just, you know what, just kiss me. And he kissed me, right? Just passing by, I'm like, no, I want a 6-second kiss.
Cute.
It's just that human connection that we are all craving and we don't even know that we do.
I had a friend, we met for coffee, and she lost her husband about 3 years ago, and I hugged her, like I normally do when I hug somebody I know, and she goes, oh, nobody's touched me in so long. And it made me realize what you're saying, and that whole community is feeling safe, feeling that I matter and I'm valued.
Yep.
And I think, oh my gosh, who have I not, given a warm hug to lately? So thank you for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's important, and we are so busy, right? We are go, and it just takes a pause to be more purposeful about how we connect.
Yeah. So I love the 6 seconds. I'll have to tell my husband the 6 seconds. Okay, so I'm going to stay with you, and we're going to work our way back. So, Mariana, how can organizations go beyond inclusion to ensure that women feel heard, valued, and supported by a strong community?
With purpose. And I know there has been a lot of talk about, or more than a talk, during the last couple of months, particularly about diversity, equity, and inclusion. I like leading with inclusion. I always have, because I feel that mostly, and if you look around this room alone, there is a lot of diversity. And diversity, and that's why Dan and I are talking about uniqueness. In my book, literally in my book, which is coming out, it's more than what we define diversity today and commonly within union organizations, but it's about the uniqueness and that value proposition that each individual brings to the table. So for organizations to be purposeful about this and for really helping women build community and succeed individually and collectively, the aspects of leadership, commitment, and accountability overall, and how you do that. It's not enough to say, we support women, or we have a women's ERG, or we have to. Are you mentoring? Are you sponsoring? Are you really doing the math in who is whom at the table? And have you? How are you doing with promotions? Who are you giving the sexy assignment? How do we, going back to ERGs, how do we build and support ERGs that are truly aligned to our business objectives so that women have, through the ERGs, the opportunity to show the value they bring to the organization that sometimes in your daily job doesn't happen. I'm a huge fan of ERGs. I came to, I grew in corporate America through my work on ERGs, and I truly believe they are a huge un semillero de talento, we say in Spanish, but we have the pipeline of talent. We have a pipeline of talent that is unseen mostly, that if you purposefully create this value within the ERG communities or networks, however we want to call them, that is aligned to the organization, and forget a little bit about what organizations can do is forget about the traditional ERG structures, and I know AT&T has a very particular one where they are nonprofits, but forget about the traditional ERG structures and build them collectively as multicultural advisory councils, for example. This is something that I've done with organizations very successfully. They are kind of innovation hubs. So you build them as diverse by design teams. You give them the tools to lead through diversity by being inclusive, because we can talk about DEI all day long and we can put people together in a room, but that's most likely going to be a mess, because we know it's so much more difficult to lead through diversity than not, right? So that's where purpose comes into play. So organizations need to be extremely purposeful. Organizations need to keep leaders accountable, and there are ways to do that. Create ERGs that are completely aligned to business objectives. Sponsorship and mentoring cannot be highlighted enough, but more so sponsorship. Be there for each other and open the doors that others are not opening for women. There's really a lot of structure that can be brought to organizations.
I love that you say just ask. I think as women, we're afraid to ask. And I think just ask. There's probably somebody here in this room that can help you or that you can network with, but we get afraid. We're thinking all those internal thoughts, which brings me to Michelle. You and I talked about this, is how do women ask for financial opportunities in the workplace, and what are your recommendations for that? Because I think it's that speaking up and asking that so many of us are afraid to do. We always sell ourselves short. What are your recommendations?
The what of the asking is important, but the when is what we're getting wrong. That's the peek behind the curtain. So when your boss schedules your annual performance review and it's tied to your comp, he or she have already decided what the next year of your life is going to look like, and that decision has been made. So maybe you have some negotiating room, maybe, but usually not. So that is really the time to start talking with your manager and saying, okay, I want to get to this. What do you need to see from me to get to that? Can we have regular check-ins so that we can benchmark, and so then when we're at the end, we can both have the same expectations of what I'm going to get paid, and that's not a surprise. So I would say that's the first thing. And the second thing is, salary talk is very hush-hush in the corporate workplace. And when they don't want you to talk about your salary, it's because they have something to hide. But then going a step beyond that, and I'm always the person who's like kind of pushing the envelope a little bit. So go a step beyond that, and I'll give you banking, for example, because that's where I work. There's a lot of women in like mid to back office roles. And there's a lot of men in operations and client-facing roles, right? And so you think, okay, my benchmark for salary is marketing director. Ma'am, your benchmark is vice president. And so that is, I don't know how you can translate that to different like workplaces and industries or whatnot, but don't sell yourself short if you are in one of those more supportive roles and not client-facing roles or anything like that. You add just as much value to the organization as the person who's interacting with clients every day, because they wouldn't be able to do that without you, right? And whatever that is, whether you're HR or even if you are in a client-facing role, but doing those appropriate benchmarks of rank and role, I think is important. This is your role, but what's your rank? And how does that compare to a male counterpart in a different part of the business? That's where your benchmark should be. So when we talk about women making 80 cents on the dollar, still in 2025, women of color make 60 cents on the dollar compared to their white male counterparts. That means you work 6 months for free. So it's important. It is important to know when to ask, and it is important to know who you're actually comparing yourself to.
Yes.
Thank you. I think so many of us walk in the room and we can, how we see ourselves can be reflected. So seeing yourself as that vice president, seeing yourself as that next level, I think that's great. That's great advice.
And not just next level though, but going outside of your scope. I think that's really, really important. Seeing what maybe a peer level, but in a different role or different department or whatnot, because that's where the money math happens that we don't really know about.
Yeah, great advice. Gloria, as we look at physical well-being, what would you recommend? What are the consequences of neglecting your physical well-being? I know we've all talked about that today.
Yeah.
I didn't get to walk, or I didn't get to do this, or I didn't, it just wasn't a priority. What are the consequences of that?
Illness many times, oftentimes. Of course, there's an impact on everything, right? You're a psychologist, I'm sure you see that a lot in mental health, but we cannot separate one part of from the other. We're a whole. And I'm MD, and oftentimes I feel embarrassed of how I was trained. It's not me in Argentina how I was trained, how MDs are trained around the world. We separate. You're a kidney doctor, you're this doctor, you're that doctor. The psychologist, psychiatrist take care of another part of you. And actually it's a whole thing. And the impact is on everything. And the impact is going to be on everything that they're saying and how you make decisions, financial decisions, or how you make decisions about, I'm not walking today, I couldn't walk. Okay, why? What happened? How can I maybe do it better tomorrow? And again, here it's like remove the judging part. The world is doing that for us. We don't need more. We don't need more. It's important how we talk to ourselves, very important. And so I didn't have time to walk today. I don't know, something happened, I got caught in this and that. Let's take a second. Why? And let's do it better tomorrow. And don't compare yourself to an athlete, right? Just compare yourself to yesterday. The next day you walk a little bit. So, wow, I didn't walk yesterday. I'm walking today. I ate not very good yesterday. I'm sure there was a reason. You know, when we make bad choices that we know, you need a doctor to tell you what to eat or what, because after you feel better. But I didn't do it. Why? I'm sure, and you mentioned that, how you spend your money when you're not aligned with who you are and your authenticity and your purpose and your values. Probably your bank account doesn't reflect that. And for sure, this is the same thing. What was going on? Because when I neglect that part and I keep going, we're going to have, I'm not trying to say, I think we talk about this. I'm always cautioned when I talk about illnesses, and because then I'm going to be like, oh, I have this autoimmune disease. I caused it to myself because I was not saying no. I was being that smiley face all the time. I was putting myself last. Well, I wouldn't say that. That's not the point. I'm not trying to, please don't do that with anything. Just take it to, okay, I have this diagnosis or these symptoms or this, I'm feeling this way. Let's use that in your advantage. What was going on with me? What I was not saying no to, what I was, I don't know. we all know us.
So you're saying, look for those triggers. Look for
Yeah,
those.
yeah.
Why didn't I work out? What was going on? What was I? Did I have? Or did I just give myself permission not to do that?
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Love all your parts. That's fine. I didn't feel it. I just needed to sleep longer. I just needed to lay on the couch. I just need to watch TV. That's okay. Take care of yourself doesn't mean go running and having a beautiful diet every day. It's just what you need, and that's very unique to all of us, to each one of us, at different moments.
I love that. You're using the word unique too. So I think that's going to be another thing. Rachel, talk to us about, and this ties into everything, how to find great mentorship and sponsorship and coaching and all the things that you have been developing here at AT&T, but that you also talk about in your book.
Yeah, so you mentioned this when you were introducing me. I have never gotten a job here through my 31-year career that I've applied for. Let that sink in for a second. I've applied for many laterals, promotions, 100% unsuccessful at getting any of those. Instead, I was always tapped on the shoulder by someone that knew me or heard of me or my reputation or I was recommended. So even though networking was not to get a new job, that has been the outcome, is that I've had this beautiful career. So how did that happen? Well, it comes from getting to know people, for people getting to know my personality and get to know my capabilities. And so you do that one cup of coffee at a time, one conversation at a time. And it's not being afraid to reach out. These people are everywhere. These people are everywhere within your company. There's probably 10 people on your floor that you don't know that you should. There's probably people I call your work siblings, you know, you report to the same supervisor, or your work cousins, you report to the same officer, that if you were to reach out to say, gosh, I can't believe we've been on the same team for 3 years and I've never taken the time to get to know you. How about a cup of virtual coffee, right? How would you feel? Oh, wow, yeah, let's do it, right? So these people are everywhere. I also want to push back a little bit on something you said when you were introducing your daughter.
Yes.
You said she is reverse mentoring me, right?
Yes.
I think mentoring has changed so much in the past decade or so. We used to use that word, reverse mentoring, and now we all have something to offer. It's just mentoring.
That's right. Oh, that's a good point.
Just
Yeah.
mentoring.
I just thought because she's younger, but
Right?
you're right.
I mean, some of the best mentors I have right now are 22 years old and new to the company, and I love the way that they're thinking differently and thinking about transformation.
Good point.
There's a great quote that I heard that says, mentoring is when one person's hindsight becomes another person's foresight, right?
Good quote.
So, right, just who has walked a path? Who can you reach out to and say, gosh, I'm dealing with this issue at work. I think you solved this in your last department. Can we meet? Can I pick your brain? So that's where all those relationships come in. And I also, if I can just hit upon one more thing that was said earlier about having a conversation with your boss. Let me give you my experience about the best way to get good feedback from your boss. First is to tell them in advance you want to do it. If you just say to your boss, how am I doing? What are you going to get?
Fine.
Keep doing what you're doing, right? And I have learned to say, hey, next week in our one-on-one, or do you mind if I schedule some time so we can talk about, my performance? Great. So it gives them a heads up. And then the second tip I have is I've always gotten the best feedback when I start the conversation. When I say, hey, here are the 3 things I'm working on. I'm working on my communication skills and my analytical skills and being more, or organized. And then it gives them their boss a place to start, so they're not fumbling for their words. Oh, no, you're really, really good at that. Let's put this on the list. And then say, hey, and can we do a touch base in, 4 months? And I could share with you some of the progress that I think I'm making. So having those kind of conversations help to set the pace, so that way it's not a surprise at the end of the year. Yeah.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I love how you talked about come to your leader with the questions ready. That way you controlling the conversation.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And that,
And the only response to getting feedback is thank you. If you're going to get defensive, right? We've all been there, right? You just want to that's not the way you're misunderstanding. Don't say that, right? You say thank you for the feedback, and then you go back to your desk and say, what are they really trying to tell me? I know that they remember that differently than what had happened, but what are they really trying to tell me? They're telling me that, I didn't hit the mark on that, or they're telling me that I should have been more prepared. Get to the core of what they're really saying. Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
You remind me of the 4 needs of followers, according to Gallup. If you're a leader, what do your people need from you? They need hope, trust, compassion, and stability.
Oh, that's good.
So if you are writing something to your team or working on something with people outside of, there are several of you here that have your own businesses, how are you using those words? The number one being hope right now that everybody needs. So as we get into career and purpose, Vanessa, how have you managed? You've just managed your own brand by moving to different major corporations like AT&T, Southwest, and now with American Cancer Society. What is your recommendation for well-being and working in your purpose?
First of all, you talked about values a little earlier, and I thought that was really important because I do think that when you start walking in your values, first of all, when you have a strong understanding of what your values are, and then you start walking in your values, then you start walking in your purpose. It just starts to unfold. And I've moved from working in advertising agencies to corporations to now nonprofit. And people always assume, oh, now you work in nonprofit, you must be working in your purpose. This must be such a purpose-driven work. And I'll say to them, and I'll say to all of you, I feel that purpose, your purpose is wherever you're currently standing, wherever you're currently working. It could be in a field picking fruit, and it could be here at AT&T leading huge teams. Your purpose is what you get to define it to be every day. And that means that the way I've had the opportunity to move around in my career has been to really understand that at the core of me, I love to help people find their purpose. And when I got to figure that out, it made leadership so much fun. Because then I could show up completely as myself. I've gone to every job interview for every job I've had, telling them exactly who I am. For the most part now in my adult life, as a mom, I'm a special needs mom. I have a medically complicated child. The Pope could call me, and if my daughter's at the hospital, I'm going to go to the hospital, right? And I make that clear, and I show up nonetheless, completely prepared, and completely ready for whatever's in front of me. But the people that are around me, they know that at my core, I'm going to have to value my family first, and then I'm going to be really great in my job. And what that's meant is that people have rallied around me in my profession. Everywhere I've worked, people have rallied around me and given me the support when I needed it, because they knew that in turn, when I was well again, or when my daughter was well again, I would be there for them, and I would be rallying. I love what you said, hope, compassion,
Trust
and stability. Whew, stability, that's a hard one, right? Is there such thing, right? I think there is. I think stability is within us. Everything around us is changing all the time. I've changed from one company to the next, and then I've been in organizations where everything within that organization has changed. But if I could maintain my own stability in the way I lead myself and I lead others, then that in turn creates this ripple effect where we're going to be okay, right? I've been laid off from a job that I loved, a dream job. I completely lost all of my senses about who I was as a person because I thought so much that my career was who I was. And then the funny thing is that I got to be able to really find out that I was maybe being a bit of a hypocrite in thinking that I was working in my purpose, meaning that I thought that my purpose was just connected to my work. And then I ended up turning around and doing more work that I really wanted to do, which is advocating for individuals with special needs. And now I do that in addition to working in my job. And then if that job changes, right, and I'll be shocked again, well, then I'm going to keep that stability within myself. I'm going to go back to my values. My core purpose is within me. So you can change companies, and each company has beautiful purpose statements, right? So create your own. One thing I love to do when I lead people is I work in marketing, and so I'm a bit of a brand dork, and I've always talked about branding. And so I always tell people, so what is your brand? If you were to build a brand from the ground up, right, like your daughter who has her own business and other individuals here who've built your own brands, what's your vision statement? What's your purpose statement? What are your core values? How do you show up every day? right? That's what companies do when they build their own brands. They literally think about what the culture of that company is going to be and how they want employees to show up and who they're going to hire and how those people are going to behave and then how they're going to market to the consumers and what the product's going to look like and how it's going to smell. Do that for yourself. That, to me, has been such a source of stability. I know my brand. I've not just built great corporate brands. I've had the pleasure of doing that in many great companies, such as AT&T and Southwest Airlines and Air Canada. But really, when I was able to build my own brand, I was able to find stability, and then I was able to help stabilize those around me and help them achieve their purpose, wherever they are, whatever company you're working for, whatever nonprofit, whatever volunteer effort you're working on. That, to me, is purpose in your career.
And this is another passion of ours. When we do our next Accelerating Women's event, we will probably do something around personal branding if y'all are interested in that. I would love, we've got about 5 minutes for questions from you guys, and then we're going to let you work at your tables. Who has the first question? Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to ask everyone, is it okay if we finish 15 minutes, 20 minutes late? I mean, so that we do some questions until 1 and then we can all gather in the table.
It depends. I don't know. I think some of them have to leave at 1.
It's going so well, and I have questions for everyone, so if that's okay.
Let's just go and see how the questions are, and then, yeah. So who has a question? We have books for the first 3. So, yes.
I think on the financial freedom, like I appreciated you touching on more of a corporate side of your money, but I think, I don't know what are your thoughts, but I always feel like even I, as someone who I think pretty decent about money, I think women tend to give up their power to husbands, and they really don't understand money at home, and we're talking sometimes big money, and women have no grasp on what are we actually spending on and where is my money going, even if they're working women, very successful, very powerful in their careers. I mean, I'm the first one at fault, like I gave the power away, and I feel like that's sort of different financial, mental health. I think that's where maybe women feel so insecure financially.
That's a really good point. I'm really glad that you brought that up, actually. So I was married. I am no longer. And part of it was a financial issue. And so that is very, very real for so many of us. I think it's really, really important to understand money, what it does, how it grows, how it shrinks, and all of those things, you know, and not giving your power away. Like you said, be an active participant. I know some couples who have like a financial check-in every month. I think that's really good. I will say I heard a story about a couple who's divorcing, and they had, you know, multiple assets and lots of money in lots of places. And the woman thought she was getting a lot out of it. But then the man confided to somebody, she's getting the golden eggs, but I've got the goose. It's important to know what is the goose and to understand it.
Thank you for your question. That was good. I mean, I think financial is how we look at it. I know I grew up with, I don't like doing math. I don't want to. And now I see it as a fun project. Is really looking at it and looking how to make it do things. So it's how we look at it, I think, and that's what you're saying. Is it a goose or is it a, yeah, so who has, yes.
This is for, what's your name? Rachel.
Rachel,
Yes.
yeah.
What is your name? Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Oh, 2 Stephanies.
Very,
There's some mics, yeah.
when you hear my question, you're going to also understand why I do not want this. I'm also very introverted, and but have learned, you know, to just kind of mask as an extrovert just to survive. So when you talk about networking, especially when you're an introvert leading a team, how do you, or how would you encourage someone who is super introverted to lead a team well, to help them network, especially when you have a team of extroverts? And so then you're just like, at the end of the day,
Exhausted.
you shut your door and you're just like, oh God.
Yes.
And it is really draining, but I just want to know how you would encourage someone who's an introverted leader to do their best work and network in the best way?
Well, I would be transparent and vulnerable, right? You could even say, in a funny way, I am challenging myself to, have 3 conversations today, right? Who else wants to do that too? And I would do it in a way that's comfortable for you. So I go to lunch or coffee with someone just about every single day, And so when you talked about spending money on things that are intentional, I spend a lot of money on coffee, and then my dress is from TJ Maxx, right? So you spend money on your values. But you don't have to go every day, right? You could go once a quarter, once a month, once a week, whatever is comfortable for you. We have a track here in the basement for walking, right? If it's uncomfortable for you to chat with someone, just looking them in the eye, having coffee, say, let's go walk together, and that way you're having a conversation while you do that. Make meetings 15 minutes instead of 30, right? There's ways to make it fit for your personality without it being all in, all in extrovert or all in introvert, But once people understood my personality, people understand, oh, that's why she's not going to happy hours, right? But that's why she's going to one-on-one coffees, right? You didn't see me out here glad-handing people and going up to people. That's not my personality. But the ladies I sat with, we could have a nice conversation. So it's finding ways to lean in.
Love that.
Thank you.
Who has another question? Yes.
Stephanie, she's not an introvert. She walked up to me at the coffee bar.
Good job.
And introduced
Good
herself.
job.
Doing well.
So you did good. So good afternoon, ladies. I'm 𝗙𝗲𝗁𝗃. I'm currently an inclusive marketing consultant at a global advertising agency. So thank you all for your time and everything that you shared. I think particularly for Gloria and Rachel maybe, thinking about the world is continuing to change and evolve. And when I look at the companies that I've worked for, all very global, very big, but I'm often the one pushing back as to what leadership looks like and who are being appointed and given roles for leadership. And they continue to be people that are probably over the age of 50, male, white, et cetera. But I think the world, though, is different. So what do you think that we need to think about when we're thinking about what leadership looks like going forward and who should really be in those rooms? Another point, too, that I always think about is it's also very cross-generational, too, right? So how do we continue to motivate people that are in their 20s and their 30s that are superstars and can probably run the company a lot better than some of these other people, but because of experience and tenure and all these things, they often getting to look at that. So just really the question is about like the landscape and the change in what leadership looks like and how we define it.
Can I take
Go ahead,
that?
Mariana. Yes.
On your first question, there's an exercise that I do that doesn't fail, I promise, which is a leadership bingo. If I were going to ask every woman in this room right now to write down 10 words that define what a leader or leadership means to you, and then we try to get 2 people that have the same 10 words, we will not find one. Because leadership is personal. Back when everyone read the same book and everyone knew, oh, this is what I have to do as a leader, and employees knew this is what I'm expecting from a leader. But leadership is dynamic, and in the context you are describing globally, is extremely dynamic. It's just, so if you play that game, it's going to help people realize that without good communication and that conversation with your boss about expectations, you cannot have good leadership. Because otherwise, I'm expecting something from you as my boss that you're not giving me, and you're expecting something from me as an employee that I won't give to you. So it's extremely important to have this conversation about what are our expectations, how we are going to build these relationships, and going back to the community conversation so that you can build trust and connection, which is going to help you succeed in that environment. But I don't think listen, we're not going to suddenly tell everyone over 50, you're done, the 20s are coming up, and you're going to lead. It's not going to happen, right? So try to, working on work styles. You have to have a lot of will at the top to have that conversation and courage to learn, going back to mentorship or reverse mentorship, or to really learn these work styles and how you extract the best of people that are coming new to the organization with this energy and ideas that in traditional organizations or ways of leadership would never be heard, to actually build this conversation. One tip and something that I do with companies is build innovation hubs. This example that I gave about ERGs is what I do with companies cross-generationally and everything else to build diverse by design teams where I have new generations and potential, talent with a lot of potential that may be unseen and that will never be given an opportunity for high potential right off the bat, to really bring them into these teams that are going to solve corporate challenges. So immediately you have them at the table.
And when she says ERGs, employee resource groups, I want to make sure everybody has a clarity on that, because I think that sometimes we tend to talk ourselves in acronyms. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I'll just quickly add, we are all leaders, right? Do you have to be a supervisor to be a leader? No. In fact, some of the best leaders I know are, know how to work across teams and have no direct reports. Who are you advocating for? We use the word sponsorship, advocating, championing. All those words mean the same thing to me. Who are you sprinkling their name into conversation? When you do something well and your boss is giving you praise, oh, you know what? Let me tell you about Sally, what she also did. Right? If you have coffee with someone and they're delightful and you go bounding back to your desk and you tell your teammate, you really need to get to know, Marcella, right? So who are you advocating for to bring them along to?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to comment on, there's 5 generations in the workplace right now, and they all need something different. So knowing yourself, as Mariana was talking about, you have uniqueness. What is that uniqueness? But then understanding and getting to know the uniqueness of all the different people that work for you or with you. And that's why I like strengths and use strengths, and we've talked about that a little bit today, but helps you get to know your people and what they need, because everybody's unique. So I love that question. One last question from anybody before we break to tables. Yes.
Shanice Crawford, thank you all. And this question can be open to the panel, but it's around trying to reset, right? So I hear a lot of advice of how do you improve your mental health? How do you improve your financial health? But how do you stop yourself to welcome that transition to better habits, right? So we may recognize, yes, I'm doing these things, but how do we stop ourselves to then transition into those better habits?
I think it'd be good for whoever wants to answer that question. I think it's knowing yourself and knowing, for me, I need an accountability partner. Okay, I've been doing this, I'm gonna stop doing that. Part of it is getting yourself in the proximity of other people that you normally don't see. We are the sum of everybody we hang out with. So who do I need to get around that's going to get me where I need to go that change these other habits? That would be my recommendation.
Well, on the topic of habit, for me personally, it's not like one day, I'm on the wagon and the next day I fall off. It's gradual. It's little things, right? And then giving yourself grace when you skip a day. And so, for me, I went through something really difficult. I lost a job, and then I felt really horrible about myself, and that was a forced reset. Some people it's a health crisis, some people it's a financial crisis, a relationship crisis, but you don't have to wait for that crisis. You could start right now. You could take one thing you heard today and say, I'm going to implement that tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and oh, Sunday I didn't do it. Oh, give yourself grace, right? Give yourself grace, and then go back to it Monday, go back to it Tuesday, go back, and then I'm really doing good on this. What is the next thing I can add to change my habits and just start to, it could be that you have a dream to do something and it'll probably take you 10 years to get to that dream. What can you do today and tomorrow? Tiny little speckles of things that you can do that will all accumulate until you get to this big dream, right?
Anybody else?
You can tell I love quotes. And a friend said something to me the other day. It was in relation to her losing her job, but it could apply to anything. You'll know what I mean in a second. She said, one door opens, another one closes, but the hallway sucks. Isn't that, we are all in the hallway on something in our life, right? We are all in the hallway on something. And so, you fit that for whatever it is. So the quicker we get out of the hallway, the quicker we can see a crack someplace and bust that door open to get out of the hallway, the better.
Great.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I would say that also sometimes you can do it on your own and start on your own. Many times you can. But if you feel that you cannot, and it's getting harder to crave that space, to create that time for you, maybe a psychologist, a coach, a counselor, sometimes might be a friend. The thing is like, it needs someone to be just there for you. When you mention the hug or the kissing for 6 seconds, I would say like someone that is there 100% present for you, and that is your time. And it's like, I don't know, will the coach know what I need and will tell me a list of things I need to do? No. But it will give you the space to think about that. And that will be your time for you. And sometimes it's hard to start on your own. Maybe you can do all of that or a little bit of that. But if you need help and you feel there's a lot out there of people willing to help.
When they say everybody needs a coach, everybody needs somebody. Yeah.
So I'd like to share a personal, I keep doing that, a personal story. And it's very similar to yours, Vanessa. So it took me a divorce to have a hard reset. And I was not okay. And this was about 4 or so years ago. It was pandemic. And it was like one day I woke up and the sun came out after months and months and months of misery. And I was like, who do I want to be in the world? And I kind of chose to have a glow up, you know? And I was like, okay, how am I going to work on myself physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, and without reading any books about it? So I'm like, oh, this is real. Okay. And so I started really attacking those. And so, for instance, for years I've been making up excuses about going to the gym. I've got, you know, a toddler at home. I'm a busy mom, a working mom. I can't go to the gym. Well, I can wake up at 30 minutes earlier than usual, and that's not that hard. And I can get myself little 5-pound weights, and I can do calisthenics, and I know how to move my body, and small things with consistency. And I did the same thing with like therapy and my finances, you name it. And 3-4 months later, I woke up and my pants were falling off, and I actually had an event that day, and I was like, oh no, I've lost all this weight, I didn't even notice.
That's never happened to me.
Well, I mean, funny story, now I'm engaged, now I've gained most of it back. You're happy. So that's a whole other thing. But it doesn't take a divorce or a job loss to reset. It takes a decision. And don't let yourself get to that place where it's a catastrophe where you have to change your life. It's a decision, and it's small decisions every day.
I love
with
that.
consistency.
Thank you. Mariana?
We're all trying to find balance, and if not, we should pause and figure out where that balance is. But balance is not consistent. You have to ask every day yourself, what do you need more of? What do you need less of? And this is going to be like this. In relationships, there's nothing 50-50. Right? And I may need 80% of you today, and maybe tomorrow you can give me 40, and we have to keep it going in order to have a relationship that works. That relationship with yourself is important. So understanding that balance and what that balance is every day is going to be critical. And I'm glad you guys share your stories, so I don't have to share mine. But it's that to me is important, because I came to, one day I woke up and I was welcome to depression and anxiety. I don't want to go back there. Right? And so, then I started this conversation. When she introduced me, I went to Italy to get a citizenship, and I came with a house from Spain because I'm moving there in 6 months. And that was the decision. My husband and I looked at each other and said, you know what? It is time. And we cannot drag this decision because it's going to drag us down. So in 4 days, we made a decision, and we're going, and both our moods changed. Immediately. And we're looking forward to this thing that is completely unknown, but it's new, it's exciting, and it's going to give us in that balance what we hope is going to be a new, refreshed kind of approach to how we live in and what we need for that balance moving forward.
Nice. That's great. It all starts with mindset. And I want to thank our panelists up here today, Mariana, Michelle, Gloria, Rachel, and Vanessa. Thank you all. If y'all have time, we'd love for you to stay at your table. I know that some of the table hosts are able to stay and just talk through, look at your well-being, just rate yourself really quick, 1 to 5. What is the one area that you want to work on? When I did this the very first time, I realized I hadn't been seeing my friends. So social was 3. So guess what we started doing? Mahjong. We learned Mahjong, and now we play once a week. And I know that it was hard to learn, but I was committed. We got to be with my friends. So, and another friend, you know, we go work out. So what is the one area you want to work on? It might be financial. It might be community. Whatever it is, just pick it right now and share that at your table. We cannot thank you enough, Mercedes and Women We Admire, AT&T. Oh my gosh, you guys have been incredible. This space is incredible. Vanessa, what a great partner you are. And just all of you, all of our hosts that are here today, thank you so much. We are going to linger around if anybody has any questions. And do you have anything?
And I wanted to say, maybe all of you can join one table. That'd be great, so that you can all mingle and talk about that. And also, you have a little thing in your tables. If you can write down your names, I'm going to pick those up so that we can raffle the 3 books.
The books, okay.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it, and this was great. So
That's great. Good job. Do we want to get one table? Let's get a picture up here with all of us.
Oh,
Yeah.